A general election means one thing. It's your chance to decide who you want as your Member of Parliament.
Hello, it's the afternoon after general election night. I've barely slept, I've had about 2 hours sleep, but I really wanted to say something about what has just happened. So some things were unsurprising. The Tory collapse that many expected happened. The Conservative Party had their biggest drop in seats ever. They've been reduced to the smallest percentage of the vote since the Duke of Wellington in 1832, and it is their worst performance in terms of the number of seats won. Their previous worst performance was 1906, followed by John Major in 1997. So really bad night for the Conservatives, and actually that is the overriding story of election night. This was a story of Conservative Party pulling back in the country. Actually, a lot of it was down to losing votes to the Reform Party in parts of the country, and the Reform Party winning 4 seats off the back of about 4 million votes, so quite a disproportionate result. And for Farage and his parties, actually, it's very similar to what they achieved with UKIP in 2015. Very similar amount of votes, but translating into 4 seats rather than 1 as it did in 2015. So the overall picture is one of Tory decline. And for the Labour Party, they have benefited from a massively disproportionate results. The Labour Party, it looks like they're going to get slightly less than 34% of the vote, which is only 2 percentage points or so up on how they did in 2019. And if we look under the bonnet of that, most of that increase is Scotland. Labour actually fell back in Wales and stayed about the same as they did in percentage of the vote terms to what Corbyn achieved in 2019. So really the evidence is telling us that there is no great enthusiasm for the Labour Party in this election. What's really happened here is there's been an anti-Tory vote, and that anti-Tory vote has been used really efficiently, with voters opting for the Lib Dems where they could win, opting for Labour where they could win in Tory seats. But actually elsewhere for the Labour Party, their vote actually fell back, and actually their vote fell back in the seats where they were strongest, and Labour even lost some really quite strong seats. So Corbyn, bit of an aberration here, but Corbyn wins in Islington North. 6 independent candidates win seats from Labour, unseating Jonathan Ashworth. Independents come close. This is on a pro-Palestine ticket. Come close to unseating Jess Phillips, come close to unseating Wes Streeting. So actually there's quite a lot going on there. And of course Carla Denyer in Bristol Central as well, and the Greens overall winning 4 seats, 2 of them from the Conservative Party. So there's a lot going on under the surface here, and I think it suggests actually that the Labour Party are not that popular, despite the reality of this massive mandate, this massive majority. It is an anti-Tory majority. And what matters for the next election actually is that Labour's seats have become much more marginal, because they've won some seats narrowly from the Conservatives, and also they've fallen back in some of their safer seats. So defending this landslide is actually going to be really quite tricky at the next election, and it is perfectly possible that the Labour landslide will unravel quite easily at the next election, with not too great a swing against them if they don't manage to bring together a stronger coalition of voters in office. So what else happened? Well, Labour did very well in Scotland too. The Scottish National Party lost 38 seats, and Labour really won back their heartlands in Scotland. And this was really Labour's strongest performance across the country. They went up 18% in Scotland, whereas, as I've said, they didn't do that in the rest of the country. It was largely a story of Tory decline. And then the final thing I guess I would want to say is that this is a massively disproportionate result, which raises huge questions about the electoral system, and I think we're going to hear those questions being raised almost immediately. The Green Party getting 2 million votes and only winning 4 seats. Reform getting 4 million votes almost and only winning 4 seats. 1 million votes per seat, and yet the Labour Party getting just less than 10 million votes and winning this huge landslide majority with over 400 seats. This is the most disproportionate result we've ever seen. And the final thing is, turnout of this election has been really low. The previous record was 2001 for low turnout, and actually this election is pretty close to that. So that suggests that there's an underlying reality here that voters are feeling perhaps that the parties are too similar, that all politicians are the same. It does feel like there's a sense of apathy here, actually, despite the landslide. So this is really not very similar, in my view, to 1997. There isn't the enthusiasm for Starmer. This is a huge majority for Labour, big landslide election, but actually largely explained by an anti-Tory feeling in the country.
Good afternoon. I have just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government of this great nation. If you voted Labour yesterday, we will carry the responsibility of your trust as we rebuild our country. But whether you voted Labour or not, in fact, especially if you did not, I say to you directly, my government will serve you. Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second. One of the great strengths of this nation has always been our ability to navigate a way to calmer waters. And yet this depends upon politicians, particularly those who stand for stability and moderation, as I do. This will take a while, but have no doubt that the work of change begins immediately. Have no doubt that we will rebuild Britain with wealth created in every community, our NHS back on its feet facing the future, secure borders, safer streets, everyone treated with dignity and respect at work, the opportunity of clean British power cutting your energy bills for good. And brick by brick, we will rebuild the infrastructure of opportunity, the world-class schools and colleges, the affordable homes that I know are the ingredients of hope for working people, the security that working-class families like mine can build their lives around. From now on, you have a government unburdened by doctrine, guided only by the determination to serve your interest, to defy, quietly, those who have written our country off. You have given us a clear mandate, and we will use it to deliver change, to restore service and respect to politics, end the era of noisy performance, tread more lightly on your lives, and unite our country. 4 nations standing together again, facing down, as we have so often in our past, the challenges of an insecure world, committed to a calm and patient rebuilding. So, with respect and humility, I invite you all to join this government of service in the mission of national renewal. Our work is urgent, and we begin it today. Thank you very much.
I wanted to finish by saying a little something about the clips that we've just heard from Starmer's speech outside number 10. I think the first thing to say is there was a slightly different tone from Starmer. There was still some of the usual themes. Country first, party second, we've heard a lot of that. But actually he was striking a different register. He was trying to bring people together, whether you voted for him or you didn't. And I thought that he did strike a reasonably good tone, trying to bring the country together. However, what he said confirmed in my mind what I already believed about him. He talked about being a candidate of stability. He talked about gradual change. He talked about being unideological. In fact, he almost talked about ideology as if it was baggage, which I thought was really interesting. So he is embracing exactly the kind of centrist, technocratic managerialism that I have always said that he represents. Now, I think we should be really cautious with making these early assessments, but having said that, on the steps of number 10, it's your opportunity to say what you're about. And what we got from Starmer was really more of the same. An absence of ideology, a lack of clear direction, and a timidity that I think is going to define this Labour government. And I think that is dangerous for the reasons that I have suggested. The Labour Party have come to power with a very strong landslide, but with a quite weak electoral coalition that's quite fragile because of its marginality in terms of the seats that they've won, on only 34% of the vote. So my feeling, even this far out from the next election, very silly thing to try and predict, but I suspect that the next election is going to be really interesting. And those people that predict that just because Labour have won a landslide this time, that the next election is predictable or that it's going to be 10 years of Labour government, well, I think all bets are off actually for next time. And actually, I think Starmer is going to have to prove himself in office and build an electoral coalition. And I've always felt that, but what we've seen last night and this morning solidifies that in my mind. Well, anyway, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I think I'm going to go and get some sleep. It's been a long night. Good night. Goodbye.